The dorm was quiet that afternoon, a rare moment of stillness in their whirlwind lives. Sunlight filtered through the half-drawn curtains, casting soft golden patches on the wooden floor. The faint hum of Seoul's city pulse drifted in from the open balcony door, mingling with the low buzz of a TV left on in the living room. BTS had just wrapped up a grueling rehearsal for their upcoming comeback, and the members were scattered, catching their breath in their own ways. Some napped, some scrolled through their phones, but Jimin was being Jimined in the kitchen. Jungkook leaned against the counter, sipping a bottle of water, his damp hair sticking to his forehead from the earlier practice. He was scrolling through his phone, half watching a random variety show clip, when Jimin burst in, a whirlwind of energy despite the long day. His oversized hoodie sleeves flapped as he waved his arms dramatically, a mischievous grin plastered across his face. "Jungkookie," Jimin called, his voice bright and teasing, like he was about to announce the discovery of a new planet. "Guess what I found in the storage room?" Jungkook raised an eyebrow, already bracing himself. Jimin's discoveries were never ordinary. Last week, it was a box of mismatched socks he insisted on turning into a fashion statement. The week before, it was a dusty tambourine he played relentlessly until Namjoon hit it out of sheer desperation. Jungkook took another sip of water, trying to look nonchalant. "What now, Hyung?" Jimin darted to the corner of the kitchen, rummaging through a plastic bag he'd apparently stashed there earlier. With a flourish, he pulled out a pair of neon green plastic maracas, shaking them triumphantly. The rattling sound filled the room, sharp and chaotic, like a toddler's toy on steroids. "These, aren't they amazing?" Jungkook blinked, his expression a mix of amusement and confusion. "Hyung, where did you even get those?" "Storage room, I told you," Jimin said, shaking the maracas again, this time with an exaggerated dance move that made his hoodie sleeves flop like wings. They were buried under a pile of old fan gifts. "I bet they're from like 2015. Jungkook, we should use these in our next performance. Imagine the vibe." Jungkook snorted, setting his water bottle down. "Yeah, the vibe of a kindergarten talent show." "Hyung, you're gonna give Hobie Hyung a heart attack if you bring those to choreography." Jimin pouted, but his eyes sparkled with that familiar mischief. "You're no fun," he said, stepping closer to Jungkook and shaking the maracas right in his face. The rattling was deafening, and Jungkook instinctively swatted at Jimin's hands, laughing despite himself. "Stop it, you're gonna make me deaf." Jungkook protested, grabbing for the maracas. Jimin dodged, nimble as ever, and darted around the kitchen island, still shaking the obnoxious toys. The chase was on, a familiar dance of their own, Jimin's playful chaos versus Jungkook's mock exasperation. This was Jimin's thing, Jungkook thought as he lunged for him, only for Jimin to slip away again with a giggle. Jimin had this knack for turning the most mundane moments into something absurdly memorable. It was like he carried a spark of unpredictability, a little flame that could light up even the dreariest day. But it also left Jungkook perpetually confused, trying to keep up with the whirlwind that was Park Jimin. "Gotcha!" Jungkook finally managed, grabbing Jimin's wrist mid-shake. The maracas clattered to the floor, and Jimin let out a dramatic gasp, clutching his chest like he'd been betrayed. "My babies," he wailed, dropping to his knees to scoop up the maracas. "Jungkook, how could you?" Jungkook rolled his eyes, but he couldn't hide the grin tugging at his lips. "You're ridiculous, Hyung." Jimin looked up at him from the floor, his eyes wide and innocent, but the corners of his mouth twitched with a suppressed smile. "Ridiculous? Me? I'm a national treasure." Jungkook shook his head, offering a hand to pull Jimin up. "National hazard, maybe." Jimin took his hand, but didn't stand immediately. Instead, he tugged Jungkook down, catching him off guard. They both ended up sprawled on the kitchen floor, laughing so hard their sides ached. The maracas lay forgotten beside them, and for a moment, the world was just the two of them, caught in a bubble of silly, carefree joy. This was the thing about Jimin, Jungkook thought as he caught his breath, staring at the ceiling. Jimin's quirks, his sudden obsessions with random objects, his impulsive bursts of energy, his ability to turn a quiet afternoon into a circus, could be baffling, exhausting even. But they were also what made Jimin, well, Jimin. And Jungkook wouldn't trade that for anything. Later that evening, the dorm was livelier. Dinner was a chaotic affair. As usual, with Jin barking orders in the kitchen, Taeyong sneaking bites of food before it was ready, and Yoongi grumbling about the noise from his spot on the couch. Jimin, of course, was still clutching his maracas, occasionally shaking them to punctuate his sentences, much to everyone's amusement or annoyance in Yoongi's case. Jungkook sat at the dining table, picking at his rice, watching Jimin across from him. Jimin was recounting some exaggerated story about how he'd mastered the maracas in just one afternoon, complete with wild gestures and sound effects. The other members humored him, but Jungkook could tell they were all secretly charmed. Jimin had that effect on people. He could make the most absurd things seem endearing. Jimin, Namjoon said, trying to keep a straight face. Are you planning to debut as a maraca soloist now? Jimin grinned, shaking the maracas in Namjoon's direction. Why not? I'd sell out stadiums. Stadiums of kindergartners, Jungkook muttered, earning a playful kick under the table from Jimin. Jealousy doesn't suit you, Jungkookie, Jimin teased, sticking out his tongue. Jungkook just shook his head, but his heart felt warm. This was their dynamic. Jimin pushing his buttons, Jungkook pretending to be annoyed, but both of them knowing it was all love. It was a rhythm they'd fallen into over the years, one that felt as natural as breathing. As the night wound down and the members started drifting to their rooms, Jungkook found himself lingering in the living room. Jimin was still there, sprawled on the couch, one maraca in hand, lazily tapping it against his knee. The TV was on, playing some old drama neither of them was really watching. Hyung, Jungkook said after a while, his voice soft. Why do you always do this? Jimin tilted his head, curious. Do what? You know, Jungkook gestured vaguely. Find random stuff, get obsessed with it, make a whole thing out of it. Like those maracas. You'll probably forget about them by tomorrow. Jimin laughed, a soft melodic sound. I don't know. It's just fun. Life's too serious sometimes, you know? We're always practicing, performing, traveling. I like finding little things that make me laugh. Makes it feel like we're not just machines. Jungkook nodded slowly, letting the words sink in. He never thought about it that way, but it made sense. Jimin's quirks weren't just random. They were his way of carving out moments of joy in their relentless schedule. And maybe, just maybe, they were his way of sharing that joy with the rest of them. You're weird, Jungkook said finally, but there was no bite in his words, only affection. Jimin grinned, tossing the maraca at him. Jungkook caught it easily, rolling his eyes. And you love it, Jimin said, his voice light but his eyes warm. Jungkook didn't reply, but he didn't need to. The way he held the maraca, turning it over in his hands with a small smile, said enough. Years later, long after the maracas had been lost to some forgotten corner of a new dorm, Jungkook would still think about that day. It wasn't a grand moment, not the kind that made headlines or filled fan compilations. It was just one of countless small, silly memories that stitched their lives together. But those moments, the ones filled with Jimin's laughter, his relentless energy, his ability to find light in the ordinary, were the ones that kept Jungkook grounded in the quiet of his own thoughts. Jungkook would sometimes wonder how they'd made it through those hectic years, when the weight of expectations felt like it could crush them. And every time, the answer was the same. It was the little things. The maracas, the late-night talks, the way Jimin could make him laugh, even when he didn't want to. Those were the threads that held them together, stronger than any spotlight or stage. And as he looked back, Jungkook couldn't help but feel a quiet gratitude for Jimin's quirky habits, because they weren't just habits. They were love in their own chaotic, confusing, beautiful way. What's your favorite memory of a small, silly moment that made a big impact? Share your thoughts or join the conversation on our website for more stories like this.